On a special WrestleMania review edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling, we'll look back at the two-day extravaganza. We'll also take a look at WWE television and AEW this past week and some news regarding the Revival and the XFL. That's all to come on this edition of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. And welcome back to another edition. I am your host, Sean Meyers, and back in the driver's seat with me is one Justin Lowery. Justin, thank you for taking the time. We got a lot to get to. As I mentioned at the onset, big news today involving both the XFL's future and the future of the Revival. We'll discuss that a little bit later. We'll also look at Monday and Wednesday for WWE and AEW as they went forward with their regular weekly television. We'll have SmackDown tonight as well. But you have to start with WrestleMania, and I know you and I went back and forth on this. I talked to Sean Saputo about this. I did not want WrestleMania to happen. I thought that they would have been better off postponing it, pushing it back. Again, there's still a lot of uncertainty as to when things will return to normal. Doesn't seem like it might necessarily be summer after all. So I, in a sense, understand why Vince went forward with it. Watching it Saturday and Sunday, before even getting into the specifics of the matches, what did you think about just it being presented as WrestleMania this year?
On my personal level, as my enjoyment level was pretty low. I mean, that's in regards to all wrestling right now. Without a crowd, you really need a crowd to feed off the match and the performers. It's just weird. I mean, some of the matches were good, and, we'll get into that. And, kudos to everyone involved for doing their best. It probably could have been a whole lot worse. But I think everyone performed well and went out there and tried their best. But for me, it just didn't feel like a WrestleMania. And too, like the whole weekend, there was no Hall of Fame. There was no takeover. It just wasn't the specialness about it to me.
Did you like that it was split up between two nights?
I mean, I'd rather have that than sitting there starting at like 6 o'clock and watching WrestleMania till like almost 1 a.m.
It still went, the actual show, not counting the pre-show, still went 6.5 hours, which I think is actually a little bit longer than it had been, or maybe right on the nose. But I think
it's probably right about on the nose.
I want to say last year, I could be wrong because I was there and I was sort of in the zone there. I'm pretty sure the show went from 7, the actual show, not the pre-show, 7 to 12:30, so that would have been 5.5 hours.
Yeah, I think you're right, because the pre-show was from 5 to 7. Now, if you remember, though, on the pre-show last year, they had more matches, quote-unquote, on the pre-show than just 2. I think they at least had 3, both Battle Royals.
They had Tony Nese and Buddy Murphy as well.
Yeah, and, I mean, maybe they added a match or 2 on this WrestleMania card that otherwise wouldn't have been on an actual WrestleMania card.
Right, because they had more people to use without the Battle Royals as well.
Right, because they got rid of the Battle Royal. Like, I bet
Aleister Black and Lashley.
Right, I was going to say that's one that's not on a WrestleMania card if it wasn't for this.
So let's get into what everyone is talking about, and that's a complete shift from what WWE has typically done, but I think this was the right time to do it, and that was the cinematic presentations. They had one on Saturday with The Undertaker, AJ Styles. They had another with Bray Wyatt and John Cena on Sunday. They even carried it into NXT this week. So I think it's pretty clear to say that this created controversy, reaction, commentary, whatever. It got a reaction from everyone watching. They had an opinion on The Undertaker, AJ Styles, on Cena and Bray Wyatt. This is sort of, a lot of people has said this is what Matt Hardy was doing back in TNA. He kind of started this. Matt Hardy took credit for it. It's long enough removed that I don't know that necessarily this is, this is a direct result of Matt Hardy. But regardless.
It is. I think so.
Fair enough. Regardless, it was completely different than what WWE typically does. So did you like that they tried to go outside the box for a show that was very difficult to present as business as usual, as you said?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they had to go outside the box. You had to put on your thinking cap. You had no choice. the Boneyard match, if you want to call it a match. I don't. It definitely was not a match. It was a cinematic. It was a movie. It was like a cinematic piece of art, which
Yes.
I enjoyed. I thought it was done very well, but it wasn't a match. But and at this point, I'd rather see Taker do that than him actually try to wrestle a match, because I don't think he's very good at it anymore.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think, and we'll get into the other ones as well, but to me, this is perfect when you know it's not going to succeed in the ring. Right?
Right, because I mean, AJ might have been able to carry the match to a point, because he could have bumped pretty well and stuff. But we've seen Taker the last 2 years at least. He needs I don't need to see him in the ring anymore.
He had one good showing. You remember after him and Goldberg had that disastrous match?
Yeah.
And everyone said these guys are embarrassing. He came back super motivated in the summer and had a tag team match where he looked really good. But again, that was a tag team match, and he was maybe had 6 or 7 minutes of actual his part of that match.
Right.
Other than that, he's been very bad for really going back to his match with Roman, where everyone was like, this is kind of pathetic.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, ever since the Brock Lesnar match when he lost the streak, there's really have been a steady decline after that match. But, I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was very entertaining. To me, that was the most entertaining thing of WrestleMania weekend. I get why they probably chose to use it the first night, maybe to get people pumped for the second night. So I understand that, but I mean, after watching the whole thing, that would have been my thing to close the show, because that was by far the most entertaining, thing of the night.
I think a little bit of it, though, was maybe they didn't know exactly how all this stuff would go over. Right?
I'm sure this is something Vince. I mean, this isn't in Vince's wheelhouse right here. I mean, this wasn't cheesy. This wasn't it was gritty. And maybe, I mean, they clearly thought it well enough to main event the first night. So,
well, keep in mind the world title match that night was the one that was thrown together last minute with Braun Strowman and Goldberg, which there's no way that was going to be good, really, in any scenario.
True.
It never felt like it was a meaningful match. Now, there were some other options. Edge and Orton, I think, you could have made the argument that could have maybe main evented the first night. Here's what I loved about Taker and AJ compared to what we saw the next night. It was clearly, as you said, watching a movie, but at least they gave the impression that it was it could have come off as sort of what you would see in wrestling, right?
Well, I mean,
it wasn't completely off the wall.
Yeah, it wasn't completely the one spot that really was off the wall to me is when AJ threw Taker, into the grave, and he gets on the tractor, and all of a sudden, Taker's behind him. I mean,
they probably should have dragged that out a little bit longer, but we've seen they've done that even dating back to the early '90s when he was thrown in a casket, and then he appeared on top of the entranceway.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's that's out of a horror movie though. You think you got the killer dead, and lightning strikes, and he's behind you.
Right. But it's very much we've seen that type of stuff in professional wrestling.
Did you pick up on this? I did. The ending of the match, AJ's hand coming out of the grave. I'm pretty sure was it Taker's hand? Back in
he lost a match. Was that maybe when Paul Bear turned on him or something like that?
Buried alive. I think didn't he have the purple glove at that point? I think it was the purple, wearing the purple gear, and that was sticking out the grave. Maybe buried alive.
That proved that he wasn't dead, right? I mean, that was sort of But so that was a callback to that. The ending of that was a little callback to that for me. Well, talking about flashbacks, we'll certainly get into that.
That pay-per-view and that match. I don't know if they did that on purpose or that was they kind of forgot that happened 20-some years ago, and probably a lot of people didn't remember. I mean, it took me a little bit of time to remember. I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
Yeah, the visual, definitely.
Yeah, the visual. My question is, though, since it was AJ, he's not, supernatural, right? So, wouldn't he be dead?
No, Anderson and Gallows dug him out.
But how quick? With all that type of dirt, if that doesn't crush his lungs and his chest off the bat, I mean, he's probably pretty dead.
The good news is you can overcome a lot in professional wrestling. He's a well conditioned athlete. I would be okay seeing stuff like this in the right circumstances going forward.
Oh yeah,
and I think it really does suit Undertaker well if they need to continue to do him wrestling matches each year.
Now, well, if there's a lot of people that still hope for this, and now after I see this match, I do think it's possible. You could do a match like this again with the Undertaker versus Sting. I know a lot of people are like, that got to be the match. That would make sense with his character. Like, you can't have Taker do this match every 2 to 3 months because then it's going to lose something. This has to be, if it's a yearly thing at WrestleMania for the next 1 or 2 years, so be it.
Well, the thing at WrestleMania is the fans in attendance are getting cheated quite a bit then.
Well, that was going to be my next thing. Like, this worked for this WrestleMania. You try that again at next WrestleMania, all the fans then pretty much have to watch it on the screen, Jumbotron. I mean, that's what's going to have to happen because it's not going to be a live match. So that changes everything up.
You know what they could do, and I actually would not prefer this, but this seems like a very much a wrestling thing, is have a lot of it occur like that and then have them like brawl back into the ring for the finish.
But then, okay, they're there, but now they're in the arena. Like,
we saw this with wasn't like Goldust and Roddy Piper.
No, didn't Orton and Bray Wyatt do, or did they do something where they were supposed to be in the city? I don't.
They've done stuff like this before, where you tape it, edit it. But I would agree, if you're going to go full cinematic, it should stay self-contained.
Yeah,
but for the fans in attendance, they will definitely feel cheated.
Well, would they? Or okay, like, it's a little break of the in-ring action.
But I feel like it's such a exciting presentation that fans aren't going to go and get their
Well, think about it. It's like going to the movie theater. If you go to see a hot movie and you're sitting there with 100 people and everyone's reacting to it, I mean, I think it could work for like a one-time thing because I would assume that, and I've thought this many a times, with his show coming out, Undertaker, The Last Ride, it has to be clearly setting up, like, maybe there is an endpoint with him. He's told them, they know it. Like, this is like kind of showing hey, it's called The Last Ride. We're showing you the last steps of his career. Maybe he has, and then maybe one more match in him before he finally says, this is it. Like, guys, I'm 100%.
Well, and if you were going to write, like, okay, this is who he wants to go out facing, let's say his last 3 opponents, I wouldn't have put AJ Styles on there. For whatever reason, he felt the need to have
apparently it was his choice. It was somebody he wanted.
Do you think it was unfortunate that AJ, I mean, he just came across as, you saw none of his wrestling ability in this. There's probably better guys to play this role in this type of match.
You look at the roster, and honestly, he's already faced everybody. There's really nobody that you're going to be like, oh, man, we need Taker to go out with him, except probably Sting. And I think Sting could work in that type of setting because, one, I don't think he could ever be cleared to wrestle again, nor should he. But I think
we thought that about Edge and Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, you would have that, just like, oh, my God, Sting and Taker, even though it would be 2021, and I think they could play that off, and that could be his swan song.
I really actually liked how this match played out. Again, it felt enough like professional wrestling. It wasn't completely off base from what we would be watching anyway.
I did want to see some him chokeslam AJ through the barn roof. Like, I was ready to see someone go through the roof because
he threw him off through the wooden pallets.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I wanted to see him actually go through Hell in a Cell, like what he did to Foley, and he could have edited that to make it look pretty damn cool. I was waiting for something like that.
On the other side of it, a lot of people love the Firefly Funhouse match. To me, this would be something that maybe you could do leading up to a show over the span of a couple weeks or whatever. I don't want this being the match at a WrestleMania. It was more like a rewind of life, and it was a different reality and a different universe, but there was this is sort of too bizarre for me to accept this in the same show that we're seeing guys going in the ring and settling their disputes. Because what am I supposed to believe? That John Cena was transformed into another reality?
Yes.
What was your reaction to it?
It was entertaining. Another entertaining thing. Completely different than the Boneyard match in tone. I thought after we got that little, package and everything, that we would actually get in-ring action between those two.
Which that would have been okay to me, but it never happened.
Right.
That's my issue. Is that
I
this
thought
is
we were going to get, and then it was just like, that was it. I thought we were now going to get like maybe a 10-minute match. Okay. I mean, I thought it was enjoyable. I thought going through Cena's career, seeing the fist and him wearing the old Ruthless Aggression trunks. I
was surprised he still looked that good, because it looked like he had lost some muscle over the last handful of months, but he still looks pretty jacked.
I think the nod, wink, wink to the fans that always complain that he never turned heel, playing the whole Hulk. That was a nice little wink to the fan. Now, if you're not like a hardcore fan, you were probably kind of confused by some of that. Like what?
Well, I was confused why they went back to the 80s. And I know it was sort of referencing like he was the modern day Hulk Hogan, but that was a little confusing because they were showing Cena when he debuted, and then
but I don't think they were just kind of referring to like the super. I think that's kind of what they were getting at. I mean, it was fun. Like I said, it was entertaining. I thought there was going to be a little bit more. I don't think it repairs Bray Wyatt's image to getting destroyed by Goldberg. But hey, I found it entertaining.
Would you like to see something like this once we go back to normal and shows are what they should be?
Yeah, in the right setting, he could do things like that with people. Like,
well, so do you remember? I think it was Bray Wyatt had a match, or maybe it was the Wyatt family had a match that was sort of like the cinematic feel before.
Yes.
And that was much like what the Boneyard match was, where, it's clearly like edited and stuff, but they're actually fighting. It's supposed to be more or less in reality. Yeah. I would be okay with that. This to me was just too abstract. I didn't understand, like, how was this supposed to be anything relating to wrestling?
Yeah, it was just going through like it's like a mind game. Like he was, there's some type of, it was almost like he, like, I don't know, drugged Cena and put him in a different reality.
Ramblin' Rabbit at least got to be in it a little bit. What did you enjoy? Like, I know you mentioned the Hulk Hogan thing. Did you like the little Vince McMahon?
Oh, the best part. I mean, I think everybody said, like, the Vince, puppet. Oh, this is some good shit. Like, that was hilarious because that was even poking fun at Vince and how he sees things, and the internet fans go, "Oh, Vince definitely loves this or hates that." Like,
I believe they're now selling that as a T-shirt.
Probably. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, to me, if you were a hardcore fan, I think you understood that match and laughed at it. If you were a 10-year-old kid or something, you're probably very confused. Like, I just don't think you would have got a lot of the references, what they were trying to do, because you'd be like, "What? Why is John Cena wearing this black shirt with NWO on it and stuff?" Like, they wouldn't have got that.
Another match that had a lot of controversy and a wide variety of opinions was Edge and Randy Orton. I think Dave Meltzer sort of just came off as a miserable, cranky man here. He called this the most boring match in WrestleMania history. It was very long, there's no doubt. It was also last man standing, which inherently is going to be a long match. This is where wrestling fans are just awful, because they're going to criticize no matter what is done. It's too long. It's too short. I thought that this was pretty good. I could say that it maybe did drag on a little bit, but in a show like this, did you really want, like, I thought that Alexa Bliss and that tag match against the Kabuki Warriors, that dragged on because it was like 15 minutes in silence. I thought that this was much more appropriate to go long. And it gave us what we wanted. People have been waiting 9 years for Edge. Are you really going to say that 45 minutes was too long in his return?
All right. I have no problem with the match whatsoever. Could you trim maybe 6 or 7 minutes off the match? Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it too. Like, you probably could have paced it up a little bit, but
yeah, you could have. But like, I thought the match itself fit the feud. What I thought made the match kind of in that regards is the commentary. Nothing to do with Orton or Edge. I thought the commentary was very lackluster for that match. And when you have no crowd, commentary is very important. They had a chance to sell the passion, the emotion of that match, and I think they failed.
I noted Sean Saputo texted me afterwards. I think both you and he said it was a great match, and he said the only thing is they needed to have a different commentary team. Or I think he said they needed Michael Cole. And I was like, well, it's a Raw match.
Honestly, so Michael Cole, I think, would have been better. Yeah, Michael Cole would have been better.
Here's my thing, and I really like Tom Phillips. I actually like Saxton, too, even though a lot of people, I mean, he sort of plays his, like, goofy, but I think most times, and maybe it's a little bit different because you don't have as much micromanaging, but I think most times commentary is sort of directed by what they're getting fed. So I'm sure that they're not all of a sudden being very quiet and whispering just completely on their own. They were probably told, almost be like in shock by how this is. So while I agree with you, I'm not sure it's necessarily their fault. I think that might have been the directions given to them. I could be wrong. But
if that was, then it's still, I think, wrong. And here's my guess is, too, because they do this usually at tape shows, that they recorded the commentary after the match. Like, I don't think they probably recorded it during the match.
Right? No, I think they did, and then they have the chance to dub over whatever they need to add.
I mean, if they did, and they had a chance after playing that back maybe to correct some things, and they still didn't. I think that's what anything that failed in that match was the commentary. Not Edge, not Randy Orton, and I'm not a Randy Orton fan person. I don't like his in-ring style. It's boring as shit to me.
Well, this is sort of like a Randy Orton type of thing, right?
And that's what it was supposed to be. It was personal. It was going to be brutal. That's what it was. And, I mean, they had the ability to go throughout the Performance Center, which was a nice change of pace from this.
I agree, except I feel like I know the whole Performance Center front to back now after the Gargano and Ciampa brawl like 3 weeks prior to that. They did the best that they could with it. I didn't really have an issue with it. There was part of me, it's like, oh, this is, kind of taking a while, but I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was boring. And when you have that type of stipulation, I think that's kind of par for the course. So, I mean, to me, I wouldn't say it was necessarily the highlight, but I thought it was more on the good side than the bad side.
Oh, so do I. I fall on the fence of the good side, and I'll say it again. The thing that sucked in that match was the commentary.
Here's where maybe it comes across even worse or better, whatever. You could take either side of it. That match goes like 45 minutes. The two title matches combined went less than 10 minutes. The world title matches.
The title match, well, I think the Edge and Randy Orton match, I think I saw was like 35 minutes and some seconds.
Are you sure? Totally. I was hearing that it was almost 40.
Or maybe like 37. I think it was under 40.
Okay.
And I did see this stat. The world title matches, I think combined was, this is going to be close, 7:47.
I was going to say about 8.5 minutes.
Yeah, it was under 8 minutes combined for the two, because I think McIntyre and Lesnar was 4 something, and then Strowman and Goldberg was 2 something, and that's how. Yeah,
I think that one, it's sad that that's what their 2 world titles have become, but I think I take much more objection with it happening with Lesnar and McIntyre because it didn't have to. With Goldberg and Strowman, that pretty much was the only option that wouldn't have ended ugly.
Well, right, but here's the thing: Goldberg had no business being in that match.
Really, Braun didn't either. Let's be completely honest. Like, no offense to Braun, but like this wouldn't be the time. That was
no. I mean, Braun should have won the title 2 years ago. They missed the boat on that. Goldberg, and then what I read a couple of days ago came out that he used creative control to get the title off Bray Wyatt.
I don't know how true that is, but that should never even be a discussion, right?
Yeah, that seems to be, the case. But if he has creative control, and apparently,
remember where it happened too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that might have their hands in the results there over in Saudi Arabia. That match going 3 minutes, you didn't expect any more than what we got, right? That's exactly what we thought the match would be.
Yeah. I mean, Goldberg's garbage.
But Lesnar McIntyre could have been really good.
Look, okay, let's get to that. Because that's more important. I mean, Strowman's winning, great. I mean, but we all know he's only the champ because Roman's going to sit at home, and I have no problem with him making that choice.
And it might be a while. It looks
It might
like.
be wow. And okay, sure, Braun. Okay, I mean, who else? I guess was. I
Well,
mean,
to
yeah,
me, Daniel Bryan would have been an option, but and that would have been awesome to see him beat Goldberg.
I
But
mean, if you could have really went outside the box if you wanted to, hell, an NXT guy like Keith Lee, I
right,
think.
but I think like you could pretty easily argue Daniel Bryan is the best guy on SmackDown.
Oh yeah, you know, yeah.
He's not really doing anything else. But regardless, they have that. So the match that really like felt like a main event for months was McIntyre and Lesnar. Why did this match have the exact same booking?
Because that's what a Brock Lesnar match is with another big guy. If he has somebody a smaller opponent like AJ or Bryan, it goes. If you notice, it goes a little bit longer because those guys can carry. When it's Brock versus Roman or a bigger Goldberg, bigger guy, they're going to come out. They're going to hit their big power moves, and they're going to kick out, finish.
To me, and I saw so much praise for Brock recently. I don't know if you saw the same, where he's like, "Oh, he's actually a nice guy. He wants to help. He really likes Drew McIntyre. He wants to put people over." Okay, well, yeah, McIntyre won, but like, why not give him a special match where he seems deserving of this, and so that it seems deserving of the main event?
Who knows? Maybe if there was fans, and we actually had an actual WrestleMania, maybe it would have been a little different.
Do you think so though? Because we've seen this stuff before.
True. I mean, to me, the match almost looked like let's get in and let's get out. I thought too that there was an opportunity. I thought we would hear like Paul Heyman throughout the whole match. He was pretty quiet for the most part.
Yeah, he did like the one time where he said he's good. Hit him again. He can't keep kicking out.
I really thought he would be talking trash. And he would play a very important role in the match, at least coming across on TV because it's an empty arena. And we kind of got none of that. It was flat. It was over, and it was like, oh.
And it was one of those things where the fans weren't necessarily exhausted like they might have been had they watched 7 hours.
Right. So
do you remember a main event like ending that quickly ever in WrestleMania history?
If you want to count Hogan versus Yokozuna,
but that was like the second.
Right. That's why. But no, that's what I'm trying to think.
Like, if you're a company, I know these are very special circumstances. How do you say like that's our main event? It was 4 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a Brock Lesnar match, though.
That's why I just don't want to see him, or I certainly don't want to see him ever in a main event with a title.
He doesn't need to be in the title picture. I mean, I have no problem using him, but he can't. Just keep the title off for him, for crying out loud.
Agreed. Want to touch on some other things very quickly. I thought KO and Rollins was great. Kevin Owens literally treated it like it was the biggest show of the year with the stuff that he did. And to me, that's the type of feud that this company, like, those are two guys right there that should epitomize. This wasn't an old timer or a part timer. This was two guys in their prime. I really liked that. What was your take on that match?
Yeah, no, good match. It's probably going to be remembered for Owens jumping off the WrestleMania sign. I mean, that's probably what's going to stick out in that match. I thought those guys gave it their all. I like how they went back and forth verbally.
Did you hear that he said he had a plan to jump off the pirate ship if it was?
Yes. So this was the next best thing.
Another match that I thought was good, but I was disappointed by the outcome, even though I expected it, was Charlotte beating Rhea Ripley. Someone had a thing on Twitter. It's like, oh, new champion, and then you have Charlotte just like being a bully and taking it. I get it in a sense. You made the argument, okay, this will help NXT, but it just seems like she's awful. Like, why do they have to keep doing this with Charlotte, like ruining everyone's good time?
Well, okay. The match itself, I thought was pretty damn good. I thought Rhea Ripley looked like she belonged. Clearly, I think she is a future star. I have high hopes for her.
Could have been a current star if she won, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like this is just Vince, like, let's put Charlotte on NXT to help in the ratings battle. Even though she's been on NXT in the past and hasn't really done anything with the ratings. I don't know what Charlotte holding the NXT title really does for the NXT brand. I'm not really
Well, I
understanding
do remember the couple weeks that they beat AEW back in maybe like November. It was when they were building up to Survivor Series, I believe, and they had like AJ Styles and Seth
that. Right.
Rollins and
But
stuff.
I think, no offense to Charlotte, but I think those guys are going to move the needle more than she would.
I don't. I mean, I don't know. Like if you said her versus AJ Styles, Charlotte might get more. And I don't see it,
I don't
but
know.
I think that
I don't know. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess time will tell. I mean, Ripley could have looked pretty. I wanted Ripley to win.
I think most people did, and I was surprised how many people were shocked by this because I thought this was at least a strong chance of happening.
And my main issue, though, over Charlotte even winning is how she won. I don't like Rhea Ripley tapping out there.
Did it sort of feel like Asuka all over again against Charlotte?
Tapping out is the worst way you can lose a match, okay? Because you're physically, as a wrestler, your character, you are giving up. You're saying, I quit. They could have did something where even if she got pinned, like, okay, you got pinned for 3 seconds, you didn't quit. Or you can't get out of the figure eight and you pull like an Austin and you pass out from the pain, the ref stops it. Like, you didn't give up. You lost, but you didn't give up. Like, you still kind of keep some of your heat as like tapping out and then laying there in the middle of the ring where Charlotte stands over you and looks at you. I didn't like that look. I thought that did not help Rhea Ripley out.
Right.
Even if she put on a great match, I didn't like how they made her tap out. That's one of my least favorite things.
I just keep going back to Charlotte and Asuka a couple years ago and how even though Asuka's done a lot since then, she just never felt the same. And how,
but she's never
and
felt,
how they made her just look bad with the way she lost that match. Like she tapped almost instantly after it only being on her for like 10 seconds. Now this was a little bit better, but still the same thought goes through my head. Like,
yeah,
this is exactly what people hate about how they book Roman, but they don't even book Roman this strong.
Right. If you wanted Charlotte to win, you could have played a story that, as a veteran, she knew a couple extra moves, or like she was able to reverse a hold. Like, oh, that was a veteran move by Charlotte to gain the title.
You know what? I said something to Elias about that when he was starting out, and I said, how cool would it be if like you lost matches for the first like months and months, like not just 1 or 2 weeks, but for a long time because you're making like very minor mistakes, and then you erase those mistakes. Because when you watch, let's say, an NFL quarterback as a rookie, and then you look at him in his third or fourth year, you see he's not making those mistakes. That's why he's doing better.
Right.
That doesn't really happen in professional wrestling, right?
No, right. But I think that would have been a nice little story to tell. Have Charlotte go over if that's what you wanted.
And that's where announcers come in big time.
Right. And they could be talking about that like, oh, that's the inexperience there of the younger Ripley. She's like, I think, 21, 22. Like, she's pretty damn young.
Right.
There's probably at least 10 years difference between them. Play that up. Play that factor up. And there's a story. And then you build and build. There's your long-term booking. You just keep building and building and building.
Anything else good or bad from WrestleMania?
I'm trying to think here.
I thought Becky and Shayna was super disappointing and a really lame ending. But I just don't like Shayna anyway, so...
Yeah, true.
I mean, I wasn't hoping that she won. I really wasn't. Like, I'm okay with Becky retaining. I just thought, like, for all that build, that was kind of a big time letdown.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess my thoughts are, I thought the first night was better than the second night.
I agree. And I actually thought the second night started better, but it sort of tailed off.
It kind of fizzled out a little bit. Yeah, I go night one over night two. I give everybody a lot of credit there. That's a tough situation to be in. I think they did the best they could. It's not going to be a WrestleMania I'm ever going to feel the need to rewatch. But
it's probably not the worst ever, though, right? Maybe the weirdest, but probably not the worst ever.
I would have to go back. I mean,
Donnie Chedrick said WrestleMania 9 by quite
11 was pretty damn bad too. I mean, 9 and 11 are usually, I think, the worst two. Yes. I would have to try to compare it.
He said those two, and he said WrestleMania 4 just because they jammed so many matches because they were doing that tournament.
That tournament was all very short matches, 5-6 minute matches, and yeah, you're right. Yep.
Okay, so they have Monday Night Raw that was taped ahead of time. Man, it felt like time filler. Raw. I don't know how much you watched of it. It was a weird show. Like, it was in no way. They promoted it as like, oh, it's always one of the most unexpected and, exciting Raws of the year, the one after WrestleMania, it wasn't anything like that. It was like Austin Theory had like a 30-minute match, and Apollo Crews had a 30-minute match, and then the Big Show was in the main event. It was fun in that it was different, but like it missed the mark if they were going for like a big time show.
Well, usually the night after WrestleMania is one of the most fun Raws of the year because you have
the fans, right? It's fans and debuts. That's what makes it.
First off, you have a crowd that's going to be really into it because they're still there from all over the world. You have people that a couple people that get called up from NXT, and you usually try to have one like really good surprise, a big name or maybe a turn.
That's when Brock Lesnar came back, right?
Like a start of a new story, something fresh. I knew that Raw was going to have that because there's no fans. I mean,
and they had taped it before, and I think that makes it kind of tough.
Right, and I mean, you're going to have like Adam Cole debut on Raw with no fans. I mean, that's just stupid.
Was that him?
I think, Adam Cole, baby. Yeah, it's
well, they did bring back the Big Show, Justin. There was like a tease, like, you have to see what happened to Drew McIntyre after WrestleMania went off. And I'm like, oh, freaking, like, Lesnar attacked him. They're going to do that. Or they're going to do something. And then watch along wrestling throughout Jinder Mahal. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But I could sort of see them doing that, right? I mean, there's a story there. They were in 3MB together. Jinder's supposed to be coming back. It seemed like the Big Show is the laziest of all things that they could have done.
There to promote his Netflix show.
And I agree with that, but it was such a weird way because what is he on this show? Like a lovable, funny guy?
Yes.
He came off as
that's okay. Big Show turns face and heel like twice a week. The last time he was on WWE programming, he was a face. Now all of a sudden he comes out and he's a heel. Next week, he could be a face again. Damn it. At this point, I think they know it, and they just mess with everybody.
He brought out his own ref. So, like, how funny would it be if that's, like, his new gimmick, challenging for world titles?
I know he's been catching up on NXT, but if you watch, like, Steve Austin podcast with The Big Show, they even talk about it. Like, I'm pretty sure I have the most turns in the history of professional wrestling. Like, they all know it.
And by the way, it was a good match. Like, I have no problem with the Big Show because he can still work. He's still fine. It's just that was a very bizarre thing to do. And the fact that even though we knew Raw wasn't live, they made a point of saying this isn't even this night. This is after WrestleMania to sell that Drew is still exhausted from that brutal 4-minute match.
Yes.
Wednesday night, what did you think? AEW versus NXT.
NXT, I thought probably overall had the better show, and mainly because I enjoyed the ladder match. Could have maybe been a little bit more, but
I actually was very underwhelmed by that. Not that it was bad; it's just like there was nothing that stood out to me. I thought Io was the only one that came across pretty good, and the other girls seem like I know wrestling's choreographed. They seem like they are trying to memorize something in their head and carry it out. It doesn't seem natural for any of them except for Io. And I think that's what a lot of
maybe a lot of people
hate.
People are maybe a little too inexperienced. I mean, it is, younger wrestling. I mean, that could be the issue. And then I thought NXT, the final, confrontation, I guess, between Gargano and Ciampa. So I thought the match to me would have been more interesting if we just basically didn't see that match a couple nights earlier on WrestleMania. I mean, it felt like it was like I just saw, that, you're back, Steve, this, that. Like, I just saw that.
You're talking about the Edge Orton.
Yeah, I felt it was too similar, and too close to one another to really get into that.
If this match had been done in the midst of regular, because it would come across as so different, but we've already seen, and I don't know where this disclosed location was, but it didn't feel any different than what they've been doing.
Right. Dynamite was a good show. Britt Baker, to me, had her best match to date.
That's a pretty high bar to clear.
I
just don't think that she's a good worker. And maybe that'll come. I understand
she's
that.
Improving. I mean, her character is pretty good. She's probably one of the – she, to me, is the best character in the women's division. Like, character. I'm not saying wrestler, but character.
Right.
So
the dentist.
Yes. I thought that was good. I mean – yeah, right there. There's
I'm good. I used the
That's
inner elbow.
That's good.
Yep,
Yeah. But no, Kenny Omega. I mean, show was solid. Opened up with Jake Roberts doing a little promo. Like, yeah, he's very good at that. I mean, and the fact the one thing Dynamite has over WWE right now is I like how they have their wrestlers at ringside because there's at least some noise, and they're also like telling stories through the outside, and it works. I mean, it just works. Even if we're betting on a match or somebody hits into somebody, like it at least makes it feel a little bit more like a wrestling show than what WWE.
And WWE can't really replicate that at this point, right? It would just come across poorly.
Well, I mean, they already did how they set up the ring and production. That changed after watching one episode of Dynamite. But yeah, like you said, if they would start bringing out wrestlers, that would really be like, oh wow, man! Like they're exactly copying AEW now.
Real quickly, because I'm coming apart the seams here, as you can tell, Justin. AEW's already filmed at least a month worth. It seems like SmackDown and Raw and Beyond, I don't know if they're going live, but they are starting to film again. So it's not like they have these already banked. What do you expect, and how is this going to play out over the next couple of months, especially with pay-per-views upcoming?
Well, pay-per-views, will be, I think, canceled.
It seems like Money in the Bank, they might do it at the PC again, right?
Well, it'll probably, you'll see the same thing again. I'm really probably going to have a hard time watching wrestling until this blows over. I'm not a fan of watching wrestling without any fans. It just I'm not interested. It's not engaging me at all.
And we thought that maybe WWE would go with best of or documentaries. It doesn't seem like that's in the future now. They literally are trying to continue everything as normal.
Right. I'm not I understand why, but that's not.
I don't know. I thought that it came down that they weren't going to be allowed to hold these tapings.
Well, I guess, but now they're saying they're doing it maybe to different a state that they are being allowed. They might not be allowed in Florida, but that doesn't mean they can't.
Well, I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain that tonight SmackDown's going to be at the PC.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not. It's a good question. I don't know. They could be doing it illegally. What the hell?
I guess that's an option.
Yeah.
Two big stories broke today, completely different in terms of their scope. One is the Revival was released. The phrasing's kind of bizarre because their contracts were going to expire at some point pretty soon. So they finally get released. They requested release multiple times. First time WWE said no. They continued to work. They tried again, and I guess they were sort of just sitting at home. It seems pretty clear they're going to go to AEW, right? I would put a lot of money on that happening.
Yes.
So how much of an impact does this make? What does this say about both companies going forward?
Well, I think they decided to release them at this time because the way wrestling in the world is right now. They can't make an immediate impact. Not that the Revival, they're going to show up on Dynamite and next thing you know, there's an extra 500,000 fans tuning in.
I think that's the big thing you mentioned there is, will it change how many people watch either show?
They're going to feud with the Young Bucks. I think we all know that. Maybe some people will tune in to watch that match. I feel like the people that are watching AEW already watch WWE. I feel
the people who watch AEW probably like the Revival, but the people who aren't watching AEW,
if you watch AEW, you probably still watch WWE to some extent. But I don't
NXT certainly.
Right. If you watch WWE, it doesn't necessarily mean you're watching AEW. Can they bring anybody over? They were never made to look like a big deal in WWE.
Yeah, they're slightly above what Luke Harper and Ty Dillinger were, right?
So I don't think they're going to do that now. If the New Day would go over or something, okay, I think that could draw people. But
right. Then you're getting a lot of kids. And
right. Yeah, same with the Usos. Those guys are big enough names. Not the Revival. I don't think they could do that. But I do look forward to that match with the Young Bucks.
What's funny is I'm pretty sure that they actually had very legitimate heat with the Young Bucks, maybe even as recently as a year and a half ago.
The best wrestling matches and best wrestling feuds have realism attached to them.
Right, Edge and Matt Hardy.
Yeah.
XFL is Done for now, probably done for good. Now, obviously, they suspended their season when this all broke, which was the right decision, surprising one because Vince very rarely gives in to stuff like that. But they've laid off everyone, and it looks like it could be the end. Does this mean anything for WWE, and what's your overall take on it?
Another, football league tried to compete with the NFL. It fails. They all do.
This was going to be inevitable at some point, but I thought that they had a couple years in them because it seemed like it was a pretty well done.
Maybe they would have had a chance if the COVID-19 didn't happen. Maybe. I guess they didn't say for sure that they were done, but you would think so. And
it's going to be hard when you sort of wave the white flag right now. People are going to say, well, it's done. And then it's really hard to get that momentum back.
There's just no money right now to pay their employees. I mean, maybe there's a slight chance they come back because Vince hates to be defeated. And to have a second defeat, with this again, I'm sure that's a bruise to his ego. But Vince McMahon has failed at everything he's ever tried to do except professional wrestling.
Would you like to some of the rules and things that they did? Do you think that will affect the NFL?
Please, yes, the kickoff. Please, NFL, Roger Goodell. I know you hate taking things from different leagues. Use the kickoff rule, please.
A lot of people liked how their instant replay was done too. You could actually hear.
I would love because I know we're both pretty big football fans. There's a lot of times you watch a review and you go, "Oh, okay," and they come out and you're like, "What the hell are they seeing?"
That's every sport, honestly.
Yeah, I like. Come on, let me at least hear what the guy's saying, and he could be like, "Well, he's an idiot," or like, "Okay, maybe I could understand that," because how they used their replay was spot on. It was, sitting there going, wait, let me see his knees down. Let me check this.
They took you inside the guy making that decision.
Right, and then you could at least understand where he's coming from. And the kickoff rule. The kickoff was actually pretty exciting. I liked it. Like, the kickoff now, the way the NFL does it, why have kickoffs? Because they're just going in the end zone anyway.
I agree.
Yes.
Did it have any impact on WWE?
I don't think, because didn't he sell stock or whatever to do that? I don't think. I mean, I think WWE is pretty financially secure right now with the television deals and the Saudi Arabia money.
Which I would think they'll probably continue to do that, right?
Oh, absolutely, they're going to continue to do that. Now,
I think there's a nice little break until the next one. I think they usually do them in like February and then like September.
Well, I think you're going to have, even October. If one was coming up, you can't fly those guys over there right now. So. Right. It's just, yeah.
Anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think I'm pretty good.
Overall, rate WrestleMania.
This is tough. It's tough to rank because of the circumstances. I'm going to curve it a little bit because of the circumstances. I'll give them a B.
All right. You know what? I'll go B- because I still would have rather not had the show, but I thought circumstances they did pretty good. Yes. And they did some stuff that I think will carry on into the future as well. That's going to do it for this edition. 5-Star Pod Wrestle on Twitter, Instagram, 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out all the old videos. We'll be back again next week. For Justin Lowery, Sean Meyers signing off for the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.